Welcome, everybody. I'm Sam Sebastian, and you're listening to How Are You Doing Really? In today's episode, I speak with my friend Robert Nizza. Robert used to live here in the San Francisco Bay Area and recently moved to Sicily at the beginning of 2020. Shortly after moving there, the coronavirus hit Italy, and Robert went into quarantine with his girlfriend. Robert shares about his experience of adapting to a new culture, a new way of being during the coronavirus pandemic, and also just some of his personal triumphs and struggles throughout this whole process. So please stay tuned and give it all a listen. Welcome back, everyone. I am here today with my friend Robert Nizza. And Robert is a friend of mine that I met at Esalen, and he was living in Berkeley, California, up until the end of 2019, and recently moved to Italy to be with his partner and family and start a new chapter of his life out there. And I really wanted to have Robert on here since I had started the podcast. There's just this part inside of me that was just like, I really, really feel like it'd be sweet to connect with him. So yeah, I'm happy that you're here with me today. I know it's almost 6 p.m. there right now. Is that right?
It's about 5 to 7.
Oh, 5 to 7.
Yeah, I think we're 9 hours ahead. Yeah.
Um, do you mind just sharing a little bit about where you are in Italy and maybe a little bit about your partner and how you're doing today?
Yeah. I am in Palermo, Sicily. Okay, so that's the capital of Sicily. So way down south on the island of Sicily. And I've been here since early January when I moved here. And I moved to be with my girlfriend, a woman named Stefania. She's a Sicilian woman who I met last summer. And I had sort of had enough of California for a while. I had been living there for like 20 years, and I did a bunch of writing and I wasn't getting published. And I started feeling stagnant, and I had a great time in Sicily last summer. And I thought, it's time for a big change. I'm going to just pack my bags, sell everything off, sell my house, cut the lease on my rent-controlled apartment in Berkeley. So that was risky. And buy a ticket to Palermo. And that's it. Start a new life up there. So I met Stefania on the beach in a little town called Shaka, which is on the Mediterranean coast of Sicily, and it's a beautiful town. It's where my biological father was born, so I have lots of cousins there, and I fell in love with her last summer, and I'm 55, and I haven't had love in a long time, so it was very, very sweet to find someone that I connected with. So after I got back in the summer, September, October, November, December, every day for an hour or two, I started to shed all of my material belongings. It was a very deep process because I had been living in that particular apartment for over 15 years. And it was a small apartment. You had seen it. It was only about 400 square feet or so. But I had things tucked in every nook and cranny, So And I sweetly remember you being involved in that because my very special possessions, the part of one of the Esalen trees that I love, and I gave you something else, but I don't remember. But anyway, it was a beautiful time to shed material objects because when I got to the airport to go to Palermo, I had a total of 3 cases to my name. I had a large, not that large, but a little bit bigger than a carry-on bag. And I had a regular standard carry-on bag, and I had a knapsack. So I had gotten everything down to 100 kilograms total, which is what the maximum I would be able to take on the plane. So 2.2 pounds is a kilogram. So I think that's, I don't know, 40 or 50 pounds. I got everything down to 40 or 50 pounds. Sold my massage table. I sold my car. Actually, I gave my car away.
It's crazy to think that you went from an apartment that you had lived in for 15 years, and I'm sure accumulated a lot of things, and downsized to 3 bags. And we're in the airport carrying your belongings with you to this new destination, this new part of your life that you're going to be starting. And wow, what a time to be going over there.
Yeah.
How was it when you arrived? How'd that feel?
Well, we met. I met Stefania in Barcelona on December 28th because we hadn't seen each other in 3 or 4 months, and it was a big step to just see each other after all that time. And we took a little vacation in Barcelona. I had never seen the Gaudi architecture, and I've never seen the city. So we took, and I had a buddy that lived in Valencia with his family. He also transferred from the peninsula, San Francisco Bay Peninsula, with his family to Valencia. And he was living there. So I thought, I'm going to see Stefania in Barcelona. Then I'm going to go down to Valencia without Stefania and see my friend. And then after that, I'm going to Palermo for good, as far as I knew. And, you know, the first month or so, first month or 2, 6, 7 weeks, I was just getting to know the city. I really like her mom and her dad, and they live right across the street from Stefania. I spent the first week or 2 looking for my own apartment in this beautiful beach town called Mondello. And I wasn't finding anything. Mondello isn't like Big Sur, okay? Mondello is it's beautiful. The water is crystal clear, and it's lovely. But Mondello is the backyard to Palermo, which is the biggest city in Sicily. And it's basically where city people go in about 20 minutes to take a swim. So it's very processed. It's not that wild, Big Sur, big crashing waves. There's hardly any waves in the Mediterranean compared. But anyway, I was getting to know the city, getting to know Stefania, and eventually she just invited me to move into her place, and she had room. It was a big step for me, but I did. And then a few weeks after I got there, the coronavirus hit. You know, so I just pretty much gotten there. I just gotten used to crossing the street there because simple things like crossing the street here is a lot different. The cars just keep going. If you're in the street, you have to really assert yourself to cross the street. It's a little nerve-wracking for an American because it's not that the cars don't respect you, it's just a style. You have to get in the street with force. It took me a long time to cross the street.
like playing Frogger and like run, stop, dodge,
Yeah.
or they stop when they see you go, or
They stop for you, but if you hesitate, they won't stop. Okay?
wow.
So it's a big difference. Yeah. I remember when I was in Oregon, when I crossed the street in eastern Oregon, I started crossing the street and the car would stop a half a block away,
Hmm.
just completely respectful of the pedestrian. Here, that concept is out the window. It's like, okay, you want to cross the street, decide and go, or else stay on the sidewalk because we're not going to let you cross the street. So I had like 100 little things like that to start to adapt to. Sicily is between Europe and Africa. You know, it's been conquered by every major European and Middle Eastern power. So there's a huge amount of, they think differently. And as an American, I have to adapt. So I started to adapt and I was enjoying the food very much. And suddenly the virus hit. And it was amazing because I was getting the newspaper every day and to see these red circles that were indicating the number of cases just covering this. You know, as you probably know, Italy was very hard hit.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed in a way because Sicily, in the very beginning, we were a little bit afraid because there was a couple of places around here that looked like they might be a big problem, but soon afterwards, the government employed these measures of, you know, staying inside, keeping the distance, closing everything, and so Sicily didn't get bad. I think even today, there's only 2,500 cases on an island of about 5 or 6 million people. So it's a very small percentage. But if you look up in Lombardia or Emilia Romagna, there's lots, 100,000 cases in all of Italy, but only about 2,000 here.
None of your family were in those areas there on the island where you're at.
Yeah, my family is in a little town called Shaka, which is um, Palermo was sort of on the north coast of Sicily. If you drive about an hour and a half south to the Mediterranean, you're on this little town of about 40,000 people called Shaka. And so, yeah, I'm the Italians seem to follow all the rules. They, even though Sicily, the people are very outgoing and like to form in big crowds, talking and touching, and you know, the men and women they kiss on the cheek on both cheeks and they're hugging. You know, it's a very tight knit kind of Mediterranean place. They didn't want to die, so,
Yes. So how is
so
it? How is it now? Are the hugs, the kisses on the cheeks happening, or is this
oh
all just stop
no,
now?
no, no, no. Italy still has, you know, long ago, weeks ago, the growth and the increase of cases started going down. It
Hmm.
peaked probably, I don't know, April or something like that. But there's still 100,000 people that have the virus. You know,
Hmm.
many are getting healed, many have died. I think I don't know the numbers exactly, Sam, but I think like about 30,000 people have died, 100,000, 110,000 have it, and I think 30 or 40,000 have been healed. You know, so I don't want to go. There's still a lot of people that have it, not so much in Sicily, but you never know, right? So
Hmm.
um, I wear a mask and I go out. You know, I guess I do everything that you guys do. In California, when I go shopping, I take alcohol and wash off my packages of food. You know, I wash my hands and
Taking all the precautions that you need to protect yourself.
Yeah, and today's a big day in Italy, though, because they just rolled out something called Phase Two, which is they're basically these little tiny steps to opening the country up, and they watch the numbers every day, and they see if we open it up a little bit and the number of contagious people goes up, then we have to, So they're keeping a very I got the sense that in the States, they didn't have strict measures. Like, for example, when I go out, I have to have a document that I sign that says I don't have COVID-19. I have to check a box. So I'm going out to go food shopping. Of course, all this is in Italian, which I'm still learning. I'm a beginner in Italian. So I have to learn all this stuff. So you have to download the document and to check the box. I'm either going to buy groceries, I'm going to the pharmacy, I'm going to the newsstand, or I have an emergency. And those are the only reasons up until a week ago that you should be out of your house. You couldn't go out for a walk, you couldn't do anything. And if a policeman, they call the carabinieri here, or the polizia, if they stopped you, you didn't have the document, and you didn't have a good reason to be out, then you'd get a fine, $200-300 fine, right? So I didn't hear stuff like that in the States. So it's a lot stricter here, but maybe it's a lot stricter because they got hit so hard at the beginning, and they had to adapt as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and speaking of adapting, it seems like since the moment you got there, it's just what you've had to do. I mean, you've moved into a new country, different culture, different way of being, and on top of that, getting news of the coronavirus and having to stay at home, and right after moving in with your girlfriend. And I'm really curious about what Esther Perel put it, opportunities in the midst of constraints. And I'm just curious what some of those might have been for you as you've been navigating this time with your girlfriend in a home or apartment these past couple of months and not really being able to go out much.
Yeah. I feel very fortunate because Stefania invited me to live with her, of course, before the coronavirus. And it's interesting. I had never lived with anybody before in my life, and neither had she. And we both decided, okay, we're both in our 50s. We never had done it before. Let's see what it's like. Let's live with each other. Let's try it out. So it was a very big step for me. Long ago, when I was in grad school, I found somebody's wallet on the campus, and this guy happened to work in the psychology department. He was a professor, and so somehow I found him. And I gave him his wallet back, and he's very thankful. I said, well, what kind of research do you do? He said, I do research on marriage. I said, okay, what have you found out? What's your last paper about, whatever? He's like, well, I found out that when people live together, there's a higher incidence of divorce after they finally do get married, okay? I forgot what the exact numbers was, but when you've been living with someone, when you get married, it's like a continuation. You don't take it as seriously. I forgot all of the reasoning, but it's stuck in my mind all of those years. It's like, if you really love someone and take them seriously, you want to be with them, you want to be married to them, or whatever situation you want to be in, maybe it's better not to live with each other and really make a commitment to each other, to be together. So that was always in mind. So I broke that rule finally after being 55 years old. I'm like, okay, his name was Howard Markman. I'll never forget his name, Howard Markman. I'm like, okay, Howard, I've I've told the line for 30 years. I'm going to give this a shot. so so you can imagine.
Those words were ingrained in your mind, like.
Yeah. Don't live with anybody. It takes away from the real commitment. But so now check it out. So now I move. I break that little rule, that intention I had for myself all those years. And a few weeks later, we are together in the house, not 24/7, but a lot. So in this house, and so now Stefania's mom and dad live right across the street. So and her dad has cancer and Parkinson's. He just turned 80 years old, so he needs support. And his mom is around that age, and she needs a lot. So Stefania goes there quite a bit, but overall, we're in the house together. So it's like an incubator for relationships. I think we've really gotten to know each other warp speed. I think it's been about 8 or 9 weeks. Wait, mid-March. So yeah, that we're basically living in very close quarters, not really leaving the house much at all except for shopping when she goes to visit mom. And I'm blessed. Maybe I'm more mature now, but I love getting to know her better and better each day. It's a beautiful thing. It's respectful. She speaks better English than I speak Italian, so when we have a disagreement, it usually reverts to English so we can really communicate. But otherwise, I'm learning Italian, and I'm falling. I'm not falling, but I'm deepening the love between us. It's just probably much faster than normal.
Yeah. And it sounds like there's a lot of amazing things that are coming from this process, like deepening the love and learning how to communicate, not only with words, but I'm sure with your body language. And I'm curious what some of the challenges have been for the two of you, or you can speak about your challenges specifically.
Yeah, I'm pretty active. Like I like to work out, and when I was in California, I was going to the gym probably 4 or 5 days a week. I'm a massage therapist. I like doing massages, and I think for me, one of the biggest challenges now it's been, I think 8 or 9 weeks. Where I need a document to go outside, right? Is I can feel my body atrophy. I've been trying to work out, but I can't really find the discipline for whatever reason. I have these workouts every now and then, but they're nothing of the intensity that I had in California when I go to the gym and really push it and sweat and build muscle and run and do all those things, So I find that concept of stir crazy, or like whatever that means. Sometimes I'll just be sitting at home and I'll feel my energy not have a place to it, not have a place to put it, not feel like I'm producing, feeling a little stagnant or very stagnant, and not really depression, but just like fidgety, antsy energy. And when I get like that, my patience, my self-communication is a little hard.
Mm-hmm.
So then sometimes I'll feel like with Stefania, sometimes I'll feel my body just contract if maybe she does something that might be annoying for whatever reason. So it's like this not having a release of energy, I'm finding is so important, because if I can't let my body exercise, and if I can't find a way to get disciplined and exercise in the house, then it comes back to hurt not only me, but sometimes if it puts me into a bad mood. And then, of course, Stefani is here. She gets to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not fair to her, because she doesn't have that problem. It's me who has that problem.
Well, and it's interesting that you call it a problem. I mean, it's I think it's a shared experience for a lot of people who are staying inside right now and don't have that same access to going to the gym or working out in the way that they love to, and really find that drive and that level of intensity that really allows us to get out that pent up energy or steam that maybe builds up inside of us. It gives us an outlet for those emotions that kind of tend to fester if we don't have that movement practice to help move some of that energy. And I know for me and for Finn, same thing. It's like we're inside almost 24/7 with each other in a one bedroom apartment, and we do our best to kind of give each other space. He works in the kitchen a lot of the day, and then I have the rest of the apartment. And I go out on walks, but it's like the weather's slowly starting to warm up now, and like on warmer days we'll go out and run, or we have weighted vests, and at least have that to kind of like build up that level of intensity to move some of that energy. But I do think there is something about us and the way that, like, if we're sitting a lot and the way we're holding our bodies, and there's a lot of stagnation that can start to happen. And I'm happy to hear that it sounds like you're able to go outside more now, or do you have the ability to go on runs in this? Yeah.
Yeah. Only a week ago, they lifted this measure that prevented you from going outside to exercise. So a week ago, we were able to start going out, and you could take a run in your neighborhood. You couldn't go too far, but you could run in your neighborhood. So I haven't done it yet. I've had the opportunity to go. I've taken walks, but being stagnant for almost 2 months or so, I had zero momentum now. So going out for a run was like, ugh, no, okay, maybe I'll go for a run, but I lost so much momentum that it's a fascinating process to have this body, right? And this body, I pushed hard before I moved from California. Like I said, training 4 or 5 times a week, running, doing massage, doing all kinds of activities. And now just seeing the body come to a different place, of less activity. It's fascinating.
How would you describe your experience around, like, finding out about the effects of the coronavirus and being sheltered in place and not going out? Was it like, okay, I got to figure out a plan, like how do I keep a routine, how do I keep things structured? Or would you say you're a little more on like, okay, maybe this is just time for me to like not be so attached to these routines and ways of being that I've been so used to? Either of those speak to your experience, or how would you describe it?
Yeah. Well, it was so interesting in the beginning, since I've been, there's this language barrier, because when I hear about the coronavirus, when I was learning about it on Italian TV, where I am, there's pretty much zero TV stations in English. Everything's in Italian. In fact, you don't even hear English, because Italy is an interesting country. 99% of all the transmissions, through radio, TV, whatever. If it is in English originally, it's dubbed over in Italian. So you never even hear English. Every Hollywood movie, the news shows, everything is dubbed in Italian. There's no subtitles. So when I was hearing the news programs with the growth of the coronavirus and what it means, I'm sitting in front of the TV like, what? My Italian's very basic. I'm at the beginner's level. Maybe I touch on intermediate level, but it's at most intermediate, lower intermediate. And the TV is so fast. I can't get any traction, So I would buy newspapers. I'd have to translate. I have a subscription to the New York Times. So learning about the coronavirus while wanting to learn Italian, I thought, okay, well, I'll have to learn it, but it's a hard language. It's like Spanish. For every verb, you can express one verb in 160 different words. Each verb has 160 different forms. Whether it's, the present tense, the present conditional tense, the past tense, the imperfect tense. Each tense has a bunch of words you have to know, given, is it a male, female, is it 5 people, is it whatever it is. So, and then they talk very fast. So, it was like a complete fascination to see myself just completely struggling to even understand what was happening locally, because to read one article in the paper, there would be 50 or 100 vocabulary words to really understand. Yeah, I could get the gist of it, but to really understand it would take 2 hours to sort of get through 2 or 3 articles in a basic way. So we're talking a lot of time. So in the beginning, Stefania and I started to exercise together. She had one yoga mat, and for me, we put together a couple of towels and another piece of cloth as my yoga mat. And we would, last summer, we started exercising together after we take a swim at this beach town where we met. And so we were used to working out together. But after a while, she stopped doing it. And then I stopped doing it just because I like doing it with her. When she stopped it, I sort of stopped. And the voice in my head was always, Rob, come on, you can't let your body, atrophy so much.
Yeah.
And then I'm in Italy, and okay, we couldn't go to the restaurants, of course, because everything was closed. But they have a pride in eating here and in preparing good foods and all that, and they eat well. And I found myself overeating a little bit, and I'm very sensitive to that because the last 2 or 3 years in California, I was counting calories at every meal pretty much. So I had a good sense of what I was eating to stay. Because at my age, I really have to be careful. A few meals when I overeat, I start bloating.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting process of not finding the discipline. Everything is so new here that I don't know what the excuse is, but I didn't find the discipline that I had in California. I didn't work hard at it. And, I'm probably a few pounds fat and my muscles have atrophied. And I'm living with it. I have pains and aches now because of the lack of movement. So it's fascinating, that my level of discipline sort of dwindled quite a bit,
And during this time, I think because you're going through an experience for the first time in your life, like it sounds like you're not judging yourself for this, but you're able to recognize it. And I think that's the first step into shifting into a new way of being, or shifting into a way that you'd like to see yourself. But I think there's another piece that's kind of universal. We're all grieving something, whether it's the loss of something personally, something that has yet to come, or just feeling the loss for others. And I think there's a question that sometimes we ask each other. It's like, well, given the name of the podcast, like, how are you doing? Like, people often, their response is, oh, I'm good. I'm doing okay, or I'm doing great. And not that isn't true. Underneath that, and that's why I put the "how are you doing" really at the end of it, is because like there's so much going on within us. We're complex beings, and like I mentioned, we are going through this experience for the first time. And more than anything, I think it's important that we support each other. And I loved hearing, like, just how much joy you have working out with Stefania. Like, I get that same joy when I get to work out with Finn. And um, when I don't want to work out, or he doesn't necessarily want to do something that I want to do, there's kind of like a lowering in that energy or drive towards that. And we talk about how, if one of us is kind of not fully available, we're not at 100%, how can we kind of lighten the load, or take on a little more for the others, so that we can kind of support each other through this? And I'm wondering, do you feel like there's something that needs to happen on a universal level, um, like the human race, a big shift? Or, like, what would you say in regards to what's happened around the coronavirus, how it's affected us, and, like, moving forward?
That's a big question. And in fact, Sam, just the other day, I asked Stefania's nephew, I said, do you think there's too many people in the world? And he just turned 17, and he said yes. So, where you live, where I used to live in Northern California, people are pretty into, recycling and nature, conserving nature and all that stuff. And it's a luxury that we can afford to do. But when you're in places that are prone to poverty and things like that, survival is number one. And the right plastic bag and recycling that bottle is a distant thing. So I remember when I was in Bali, working with Ellen Watson with the massage, we went to a little island very close to where we had the massage class. And Ellen was taking 10 or 20 huge garbage bags. And this part of Bali was very remote. It wasn't in the southern part where there's all the people. This was in the country, way out in the country. And I learned right away I couldn't get off the boat without my foot touching a piece of plastic or a plastic bottle. The water was pristine, but the surface of the water was covered in garbage. They have these water currents that are taking literally billions of bottles of, water bottles and garbage, diapers, light bulbs, whatever you want to think of. And it takes it down through the waters, down to this remote part of Bali, and so I remember when I couldn't put my foot into water, I had to touch a piece of plastic. I could feel tears. And, I didn't want to cry at that point because I was with other people, but I'm like, what happened to our planet? And when I went to Mexico once too, at one corner of the Caribbean there, all this plastic just washes up, so, and this is a beautiful part where there's not that many people and there's just tons of plastic washing up. And, we're overfishing the seas, the swordfish have too much mercury to eat, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just wondering, what's happening to the planet on a universal scale. So I'm not surprised that, I don't know how this virus started. They said that bats in China were taken to some market, and who knows how it started. But I think this virus, this pandemic, is an indication of a disrespect for the planet and natural processes of the planet. I think human beings aren't respecting the flows of nature, and I think this virus is probably a result of that.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely been a way in which we've been living that's been out of balance or out of harmony with nature for a while, and it finally hit this like tipping point. And one thing that I've noticed more lately, and maybe it's just been there all along, but I feel so much more tuned into it now, is just like hearing all the birds in the morning when I wake up, and just less noise of traffic. And it's something I'm really grateful for. And I agree. I think that there is something that nature, or something on a larger scale than just us humans, is communicating with us. And another thing that comes to mind as we talk about this is moving forward. Like, how do I want to continue to show up and live in this world? And one of the things that is happening recently for me is I'm moving from San Francisco to Nevada City, and we move out this Saturday and into a house, and I'm so excited to be outside of the city. I mean, I love it here. I've been here for over 13 years and have received so much from it, and have a community of friends and clients and fellow teachers that I will continue to nurture my relationships with. And I also think about down the road wanting to create a retreat center and a permaculture farm, and having a place for people who live in the city to come up and stay and be more in nature. So that's one of the things that comes to mind for me. And another thing that's just kind of been lingering in my mind is like, well, if we only had 1 year left to live, like how would I want to spend that? And I also think about, like, do I wait to say things to people that I love and that I care about, or do I say it? And that's something I've been practicing more of, is just when certain people in my life come to mind, I want to reach out to them and let them know, hey, I'm thinking about you, or I'll give them a call. And have any of these things kind of been in your thoughts or ways of practice?
Let's see. What comes to mind when you talk like that is when I go to Stefani's mother's apartment and I see Stefani's father, and I said previously he has Parkinson's and he has cancer, and he just turned 80. He can't really. When he speaks, it's very hard for me to communicate with him because I don't have enough Italian, and Sicilians also speak Sicilian when they're at home. So there's Italian, and then there's some words in Sicilian sometimes, and he's an old guy. And when he has lunch sometimes, he starts to sweat a lot, and he gets dizzy, and he's fallen a couple of times. I've seen him fall a couple of times since I've been here, and I want to talk to him more, but I can't. It's like, but I see a man towards the end of his life struggling, calling out for people. One time he had a very bad episode where we had a big lunch, and usually on Sundays, it's a Sicilian, maybe it's an Italian tradition. On Sundays or on holidays, you go to the pasticceria, the pastry shop, and you get a nice bunch of pastries, and you celebrate and you eat them, because here it's an art. It's amazing here. And he had a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and maybe a little bit of wine, and suddenly he's sweating a lot, and he became very disorientated. And when he gets like that, he's not strong at all, but he gets out of his chair and he starts to walk, but he has Parkinson's, so his feet shuffle. And he looked yellow, and I thought he wasn't breathing, so it was a very stressful day. But because of this man, I don't know if this answers your question or your thought, but I'm really feeling very strongly the frailty of human life through this man, and I love this concept of, well, what if you only had a year to live? What if this virus was 10 times more potent than it was? Okay, we probably wouldn't be able to talk right now. So he's teaching me how to really he's staying the big picture. Uh, and so when I'm with Stefania, so one way that it manifests for me is that when I'm with Stefania, and maybe it's been a hard day, maybe she was a little depressed over something, or I was a little depressed about my body falling apart, or whatever it is, I can just look in her eyes and I can see her spirit. And I remember her father, and okay, this is what we have now. Let's make the best of it. We can't get out of the house. We have each other. What do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? And there's a heightened vitality in some moments, I think, because of her father. So I mean, you're talking about a big universal global thing, and I think I flipped it upside down, and I took one guy that's close to death, and I'm making it universal. How do I live better, because our time is limited?
Yeah, and I love that perspective as well, and I think it's just how if we want to see things shift on a larger scale, it's like we start with ourselves. And I just appreciate you sharing what you just shared, because I hope other people who hear this are able to kind of see life through your lens and that experience. And yeah, it's interesting how we've all been put in touch with the reality of mortality. Like that's the one thing that's for certain when we come into this world, is we are going to eventually pass away.
I think one of the reasons why I wanted to cry when I was on that little boat in Bali and I saw all the It's because I felt so powerless. I could fill up a garbage bag with plastic. The locals weren't doing it, but these white people from California taking a massage class were filling up garbage bags and cleaning up for the Balinese. So, but I felt utterly powerless. Utterly powerless. I couldn't do a damn thing about a billion pieces of waste, plastic waste coming down the way. And so I remember the story somebody said. It was a father, and he was really busy, and his son kept bothering him. Dad, do this. Dad, do this with me. Do it. He's like, I'm busy. Will you leave me alone? The dad was reading the paper. So the dad took a piece of the paper, the newspaper, and he ripped it up into a bunch of pieces. And he gave it to his son. He said, here's some Scotch tape. Tape it back together. Keep yourself busy. and on the page, the father looked up. It was the globe. It was the world, right? Picture of the world from outer space. So in a remarkably short time, the kid comes back with it glued together perfectly, right? So I was like, what? How'd you do that so fast? It's a big map of the world, blah, blah, blah. He goes, oh, Dad, on the other side was a man. And when I taped the man back together, the world just fell right into place. So what you're saying is that what can I do? I can't fix a billion bottles of plastic in Bali, But what can I do? Can I use less? Can I get my life down to 3 suitcases and not have? Yeah, that was extreme. I think most people might be challenged to do that, but I was able to do that. But here in Italy, it's actually quite motivating because their recycling is a little bit complex. It took me a long time to figure out. 6 days of the week, you have your glass, you have they call it or organic, which is like your compost, like your food waste. You have glass and metal, and one is called indifferenziata, which is stuff you don't know what to do with. It's like a dirty piece of paper with soiled food or something. It doesn't go into it. So it's indifferent, it's indifferent. I don't know how they think it, but so, when it all comes down to it, for me, it comes down to kindness, and kindness to my fellow man, kindness to the planet. And if no one else does it, I can still look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm doing the best I can do. And if the world's going to go away because the planet just can't sustain all these people, it goes away. But I'm trying, That's the best I can do, I think. Okay, maybe I can organize a group of people to do more, but,
Yeah. And also extending that kindness to ourselves.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the hardest things to do. Especially when you're locked up, feeling sort of, sometimes I feel quite useless just staying in the apartment, and I get a little down on myself. I'm like, ooh, where's the kindness? It's much easier to be kind to Stefan, his father, than it is to myself. So it takes a big reframing effort to come back to my own heart and to take care of myself. If I don't take care of myself, and Stefani, his father, if I see him starting to fall, I won't be able to help him. He's falling and he's cracking his head on the marble, and I can't do anything about it because my body isn't responsive enough anymore. So, yeah, totally. Good point.
I just want to say how much I appreciate you sharing what your experience has been like. it's been really touching, and at times just brought some tears to my eyes. And if anything, I just want to let you know I'm sending a lot of love and good energy your way, and to Stefania and her parents. And
You want to meet her?
I would love to. Yeah.
You want to wait a second? I'll see if she can come talk and say hi. Okay.
Okay.
Sam, let me introduce you to Stefania.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Stefania.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great now that I've just had the past hour to talk with Robert and catch up. I've heard a lot about you, and it's nice to see you.
Well, thank you. It's nice to see you for me also.
Yeah, Sam is in San Francisco right now. It's early morning for them, mid-morning for him.
Yeah.
How is in San Francisco?
You know, it's beautiful outside right now. It's sunny. It's not windy. I actually haven't been outside yet. Hopefully, I have one more meeting after this with my therapist. I'll get some time to go outside. But we're still able to go out and be in nature and go around the city. So I've felt very grateful for that. And fortunately, the numbers of people who have been affected has been fairly low. So we're just staying pretty cautious and wearing masks, and yeah. Definitely. Oh. Well, thank you for sharing some time, allowing him to come and be with me today. And it's been sweet to see you. And hopefully someday, whether you come over here or I'm in Sicily, I'd love to meet you in person.
I hope so.
You have an open invitation. You and Finn, come on down.
I'd love to. He's been to Italy, but I've never been, so I want to.
It's a beautiful place. Yeah.
So we can do a cultural exchange.
Yes. I've been hearing a bit about your culture from Robert and his experience of crossing the street and the cars.
by Robert.
I will coach you. It took me to get the technique down. And I'm pretty good now, right? I'm across the street.
Yes, it's perfect now.
Yeah.
This is still alive.
Awesome.
It's a good sign.
Let's keep it that way.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Robert, and I hope you both get to enjoy your evening together, and just sending you a lot of love, and your parents as well, Stefania. So
yeah.
Let me know if I can do anything to support you from afar.
Thank you, Sam.
Well, ciao.
Thanks, Sam. See you. Ciao.
Thank you all so much for listening today. If any of you'd like to find out more about the work that I do, you can go to samsebastian.com. That's SAMSEBASTIAN.com. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, please reach out to me via email. That's sam@samsebastian.com. Much love.